So this is the assembly tutorial for the Thomas sidebar upgrade kit that comes with the light up ear pucks. So what we're going to start with is the left and right sidebars. So I'm just going to start with the left one. The first thing you want to do is mount the Max 7219 integrated circuit. So starting with the left chin piece, we're going to take the Max 7219 here, we're going to go flip it upside down, and we're going to fit it like so. So we have the notch facing towards the flat side here. So again, we mount the Max 7219 chip on the opposite side, facing that way, with the notch facing to my right when looking at the sidebar this way. And then we're going to go ahead and solder this chip into place. Once the Max 7219 is mounted this way, we're going to start populating the rectangular LEDs. So if you look at your LEDs, at your 2x5x7mm LEDs, you'll notice that they have a long lead and a short lead. So the long lead corresponds to positive and the short lead corresponds to negative. And on the stencil here, you can see that there's a kind of a faint bold mark here, and there's no bold mark here. So the shorter lead has to go with that bold mark. So on the left chin piece, you're going to, mounting these LEDs, you want the shorter leg facing up. So we have the shorter leg on top, and the longer leg on bottom, and we're going to mount it like so. So there's one, and I'm just going to go ahead and mount the other three. So once again, shorter leg on top, longer leg on bottom. Alright, once these are mounted, go ahead and hold these down, and we're going to bend the leads out of the way. So if we flip it over, these don't fall out. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is solder these into place. So once these are all soldered, we're going to go ahead and bend these up. And then we're going to take our wire cutters and we're going to cut all these leads off. Remember to wear eye protection. Alright, so that's one column mounted. Don't worry if they're a little crooked. I'll show how to fix these bent LEDs later. So we're going to go ahead and populate the next three and solder them just like that, just like we did the first one. So we have the top part of the left sidebar completed. So now we're going to move on to the lower part here. So again, you'll see a bold mark here and no bold mark on the other side. So again, we'll take the short lead, put it on the side with the bold mark, and the longer lead on the side without the bold mark. So like this. Okay, and then go ahead and bend these leads back, solder these, and then trim these leads off, and I'll go ahead and solder these LEDs, and I'll pick up the video from there. So now what we want to do is mount the LEDs here. So this is where the straw hat LEDs go. If you look at the stencil, you'll see a flat part here on each LED. So that's where the shorter leg of the straw hat LED goes. So all the LEDs go like so. And once you place your LED, you should see the flat part of the LED line up with the flat part of the stencil. So go ahead and mount all of these LEDs and bend the leads out of the way. Alright, so now that all these LEDs are mounted, side note, don't mount the straw hat LEDs here. You mount the regular full-size LEDs here, which I'll do later. So remember, just put the straw hat LEDs in these 4 sections, not here. So once you've went ahead, placed the LEDs and bent the leads. We're going to go ahead and solder all these, and then trim all these leads. So now that all these LEDs have been mounted, soldered, and trimmed, we're going to go ahead and mount these two resistors. So a thing to note is that you need to mount these resistors on the other side. So make a U-shape out of the resistor and place it in the hole corresponding to R1 and R2. So like this. So there's one resistor placed, that's R2 placed, now we're going to place R1. Alright, and that's both resistors mounted, and then we're going to solder and trim these leads. Alright, there's the resistors mounted, and now we're going to mount the capacitors, which go here on the opposite side. So now you'll need your 0.1 microfarad and your 22 microfarad capacitors. And we're going to go on ahead and mount them right here. So I'm going to start with the 22 microfarad, and I'm going to go and mount it here. So remember that the polarized capacitors are, so remember that the electrolytic capacitors are polarized, and it matters what way you put them in. So we have the longer lead and the shorter lead. The longer lead is positive, the shorter lead is negative. And if you look at the silk screen here, you can see that the left terminal is positive and the right terminal is negative. So we're going to take this capacitor, and on the other side we're going to mount it like so. So we have the longer lead coming out of the positive and the shorter lead coming out of the negative. And then we're going to go ahead and mount the 0.1 microfarad capacitor, and this one isn't polarized, so it doesn't matter what we mount it. So just mount it like so. And then we're going to go ahead and solder these into place and then trim the leads. So now we're going to mount the 5mm regular LEDs. These are white, and once again the shorter lead goes with the flat part of the stencil and the longer lead with the curved part. So mount them like so. So these are mounted. Now we're going to go ahead and solder these into place. And these are soldered. Now we're going to go ahead and trim these. Okay, so now all these LEDs are soldered, although they are crooked, and every component is on the board. So I'm going to show you how to fix up these bent LEDs that are, a little bad looking. So what you need to do is just take your soldering iron and then touch it where that LED is on the two leads, melt the solder, and you should be able to push the LED further into place and align it with the others. So go ahead and do that with all the LEDs. So now that all these LEDs have been properly aligned, we're going to go ahead and tin these 5 contacts down here. So we want to go ahead and apply a little bit of solder to each one of these contacts. V+, G, D, L, and CLK. So now that these are all tinned, we're going to go ahead and set aside the left sidebar and start working on the right one. So once again, we're going to start with mounting the MAX 7219 chip, and this time the notch faces the slanted side, not the flat side. So with the notch facing to my left, we're going to go ahead and mount this chip here. So like so. The notch with the slant. And then we're going to go ahead and solder this chip into place. So now that this chip is mounted, we're going to go ahead and start working on the 2x5 by 7mm LEDs. So once again, the flat part goes with the bold mark on the stencils. So like this. Alright, so all these are mounted, and we're going to hold the LEDs and bend the leads and solder them. These are all soldered. Bend these, trim these leads, and then I'm going to go ahead and solder the rest of these LEDs into place. Alright, so all of the top LEDs are soldered, and we're going to go ahead and start soldering the lower ones. So once again, the shorter leg goes with the bold mark. So now we're going to go ahead and mount the straw hat LEDs here. So the shorter leg corresponds with the flat part of the stencil. So like this. I'm going to go ahead and populate all these LEDs. Alright, so all these LEDs have been soldered and trimmed. Now again we're going to go ahead and mount the two 47k ohm resistors. So they go on the opposite side again. And then we're going to go ahead and solder these into place. And then we're going to go ahead and mount the two capacitors. So again, we're going to start with the electrolytic, and remember these are polarized. So the longer lead is positive, the shorter lead is negative, and we're going to go ahead and mount it like so. So we have the positive lead going on the left, and the negative lead on the right. So the shorter lead is here, the longer lead is here. And then we're going to mount the 0.1 microfarad capacitor, and again, it goes here, doesn't matter what way it goes. Solder these into place, trim the leads, and all it's left to do is mount these three LEDs and tin these contacts here. So take your 5mm wide LED and then line it up with the stencil again, where we have the shorter lead with the flat part, the longer lead with the curved part. So on the right sidebar, we have the shorter leg on the right and the longer leg on the left. And then we're going to go ahead and solder these to place. And then we're going to go ahead and fix up all these LEDs that are askew. So again, just take your soldering iron, touch it to the two pads, and then you could push the LED further in, and it should be pretty much even. And the last thing that's left to do is just tin these 5 pads. So we're going to go ahead and set this right sidebar aside. And at this point we've completed soldering all the LEDs and all the electronics on the sidebars.